What's up guys, my name is Ace, and it looks like I found another hidden buff that came to a gun, and this is something I have no idea when this went through, but this was a buff to the AS44's recoil. And I've got to say, after taking a good look at this and playing around with a new class setup, this is now potentially a top tier weapon to use, at least in public matches. We're not talking about ranked play here, but when it comes to public matches with no attachment restrictions, this is pretty incredible. So let's have a look at this change first, and like I said, this was a buff to the recoil of the AS44, and when we have a look at our side-by-side comparison here, looking at the recoil of the AS44 at launch versus now, again, I have no idea when this update went through, it may not look like a massive change at first glance, but the big thing I want you to pay attention to is at launch, especially on that second recoil plot as a great example, look at how far the gun will jump horizontally with just 4 bullets fired. That is an insane amount of horizontal recoil, and horizontal recoil is the hardest recoil to control. This is what made the AS44 a bottom tier gun unless you were using something like the burst barrel, which completely changes how this gun performs. Whereas when we look at it post-patch with those first 4 shots fired, it's significantly tighter and we don't have to worry about that nearly as much. Now it's a much more normal recoil pattern where it just kicks up and a little bit to the right. Now, is it the most accurate gun in the game now? No, absolutely not. This still has some recoil. There are absolutely more accurate guns out there. But with this new recoil pattern, it now makes the AS44 a lot more viable. You can start doing a lot more things with it that weren't really viable pre-patch because you just didn't have the recoil to back it up. A great example of this is using the high damage magazines. This is the 7.62x54R ammo. This ammo type gives you a great time to kill at 142 milliseconds, but when I look back to my gun guide for this gun, I didn't even create a recommended class setup with that because the base recoil of the gun was quite bad, and this just made it worse. And no matter what you did with other attachments, you just couldn't really make up for that terrible recoil, so it just wasn't a solid option to be using. Whereas now, you can really make this work. And that's what you're seeing in the gameplay in the background. Now, I know I ended up on one of the smallest maps in the game here, but this can also be used just fine on the bigger maps. It's just I happened to get this match right away, and I did get some good gameplay that shows the potential of this gun, so I thought I'd show that off here. But let's have a look at the class setup that I was using, and a class setup I'd highly recommend giving a shot if you haven't already yet. This right here is my new AS44 Dominator class. So with this, we are using the high damage magazines combined with the accurate barrel, so we get the most accuracy possible out of that. And with this, we're going to get a 3-shot kill out to 42.9 meters, which will cover the vast majority of your gunfights. It's very easy to keep yourself within 42.9 meters. And what this means is our time to kill potential to the body is 142 milliseconds, which is one of the fastest killing full auto guns in the game. This thing kills in the blink of an eye. It also has decent enough handling. That was one area where I did have to stack some attachments to make sure my aim down sight time wasn't too slow, but I would say 300 milliseconds is manageable. Our sprint to fire time is very fast since we're using gung ho on this. And this is what our recoil looks like. Once again, I'm in no way claiming this is the most accurate gun out there. It's not necessarily the most versatile gun out there, but if you treat it right and you make sure you're just not challenging really long range fights, this recoil should be no problem for you to manage. And when you factor all of this in together, that now makes this an upper tier choice, in my opinion, for public matches. And I really wanted to make sure I was sharing this with you guys just because this gun really hasn't seen a whole lot of usage in the game because historically it was never really all that great. The recoil just held it back too much. And this little hidden update changed everything with that, and I love to see an underdog rise to the top here, so if you guys haven't given this a shot yet, I'd highly recommend trying it out because I think you'll be quite impressed as long as you're playing this as a more closer to mid-range assault rifle. I wouldn't be using this to try to go for long shots or anything like that or lock down lanes at really long lines of sight, but as a semi-aggressive assault rifle build, this thing is quite incredible now. And to me, I just find it really interesting that once again, I didn't see any mention of this anywhere in patch notes. Now, someone can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure this was never mentioned. And it was just like with the Sten buff, where they took a really underdog sort of a gun that traditionally underperformed. People kind of wrote it off as just the bad gun of the weapon class. And then just behind the scenes, they made an adjustment without mentioning it and advertising it to people. And I just find that to be very confusing. You'd think they'd want to advertise that to get people back in trying out these underdog guns that they previously didn't like. Because who knows, you may find your new favorite gun that you previously hated. In either case, there's the hidden AS44 buff. This gun is far more viable than it used to be, and if you guys haven't tried that class setup out yet, I'd highly recommend giving it a shot, and I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised. Now, of course, that is just my opinion. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about this hidden AS44 buff? Do you think it is much more viable or even dominant at this point? Or do you think it wasn't quite enough and you don't see yourself using it anytime soon? Just let me know those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.